Okay, so if the linear programming problem is feasible, that is, you can find some feasible solution x naught to it, then there comes the question of if there is an optimal or not. So if the LP problem is feasible, then it can either have an optimal or it can be unbounded below, that is, goes to minus infinity. So this statement I am making in the context of a minimization problem. Okay, so two possibilities, or rather all the possibilities I have enumerated here. One is that it is infeasible. If you detect infeasibility, what you should do? You should stop. Otherwise, it is feasible. If it has a feasible solution, then again there are two possibilities. It has a finite minimum, or it is unbounded below, that is, it goes to minus infinity. So, for example, let's look at this problem, infeasibility. I gave you one example. This is even more simpler, trivial example. I have minimized x1 such that x1 is less than or equal to 0. So then where can I take x1 to? I can take x1 to minus infinity. Objective function, I'm sorry, uh, it's not, it's a unbounded solution, not the infeasible solution. I gave you a example of infeasible solution earlier. This is an illustration of unbounded minimum. So x1 is less than or equal to 0. That's my constraint specification, and I want to minimize x1. So I can drive x1 to, if I take x1 as minus 1, objective function is minus 1. If I take x1 as minus 100, which is also less than or equal to 0, objective function is minus 100. If I take it as minus 1 million, then that minus 1 million is also less than or equal to 0, and objective function is minus 1 million. So I can drive this to minus infinity, which is unbounded below, goes to minus infinity. Usually such problems we need to detect in our software or in our algorithm, but they again show that we have not formulated our problem properly. A well formulated problem will not only have a feasible solution, but usually will also have an optimal solution. Now let's look at uh, the other kind of a problem. Uh, this minimize x1. Let's write this as minimize x1. X1 greater than or equal to 0. So clearly x1 equal to 0 is the global minimum of this particular problem, and so it has a finite minimal solution. So when the problem is feasible, you can have either a finite minimum solution or it can be unbounded below. The simplex algorithm has to detect this and stop. If this problem of unbounded below is there, then it should not keep iterating forever. It should detect this and stop. And if this is also not there, this is also not there, then it should reach the global minimum, the finite minimum or maximum as the problem is. Okay, so what is the approach now? First of all, we will assume existence of optimal, develop an approach. This is usually called as simplex phase 2. Phase 1 is used to find a basic feasible solution, but it uses what is written in the phase 2. So that's why phase 2 is done first. Phase 1 is usually written more as an extension form. Then we consider the problem of unbounded minimum. As I discussed you, we need to develop a test for it. And then finally, we will tackle the problem of identifying a basic feasible solution or identifying infeasibility. So again, that also, so 2 and 3 are, first we assume that there is a feasible solution. We know the one feasible solution, and then we write a procedure to calculate the optimal. That is the phase 2. That's straightforward, most straightforward case. The problem is feasible and it has a optimal. Let me give you a starting point, a feasible point. Please go ahead and determine me a solution. So we write a procedure for it, which is called simplex phase 2. Once we have developed simplex phase 2, later on we will see that it itself can be reused to that same approach can be reused to find feasibility, to find the first feasible solution, as well as in it itself lies the test for the problem of unbounded minimum. Okay, now the question is, what is a basic feasible solution? So a basic feasible solution is a solution vector x bar which solves ax is equal to b and x greater than or equal to 0. So it's, but it, that's just a feasible solution. That's not a basic feasible solution. There is, in this word here, we have also something called basic. So the basic here implies that n minus m entries of x bar vector are 0 and m entries typically are uh, non-zero, usually positive. In the at least in the first class, we are going to assume that they are positive. So these zero variables are called uh, as non-basic variable, and the remaining m variables are called as basic variables. So let me take an example. Suppose m is equal to 2 and n is equal to 5. That means how many equations I have? Two equations in 5 variables. Okay, ax is equal to b. So augmented form is what I am looking at right now. Okay, before you write a basic feasible solution, if the linear programming problem is not in the standard form, you should augment it with slack variables, write the augmented form, get it to the standard linear programming form, and then only you talk of basic feasible solution and things like that. So now assume here that, let's say a candidate x bar is 5, x1 is 5, x2 is 2, x3, x4, x5 are 0. So this is possibly a basic feasible solution provided it meets the requirement that ax is equal to b. Right now I have not specified what is A matrix, what is B matrix, but suppose this meets ax is equal to b, then this would be a basic feasible solution. Why? Because n minus m entries, that is 3, 5 minus 2, 3 entries, 3 x variables are 0 and the other two are positive or non-negative or positive. So this is a truly a candidate for basic feasible solution. Now let's look at another candidate, minus 1, 8 and triple 0. So this has also n minus m variables 0. Probably this also satisfies ax is equal to b, but because one of these variables is negative, it is not feasible and hence cannot be a basic feasible solution. Okay, now let's take a third possibility. X bar is equal to x1 is 2, x2 is 3, x3 is 4 by 3, 0 and 0. So now here the number of non-zero variables are 3 and the 0 variables are only 2 variables are 0. But a basic feasible solution requires 3 variables to be 0. Hence, in this our case, I mean n minus m variables to be 0. So 5 minus 2, that is 3 variables to be 0. So that is not the case. Hence, this cannot be a basic feasible solution. Further, BFS needs to meet the criteria. Now, this is important. Further, basic feasible solution needs to meet the criteria that columns of A matrix corresponding to the basic variables are linearly independent. This is also important, and the importance of this you will immediately see as I explain to you. So without loss of generality, let me assume that I can partition the x vector into a set of uh, m variables called xb, the basic variables, and the set of n minus m variables called xn, the non-basic variables, and at some point x bar, which is a basic feasible solution, the xn bar has to be obviously equal to 0, otherwise it won't be a basic feasible solution. And therefore what do you get? Bxb bar plus n times of 0 is equal to b. If now now if this has a unique solution only if B matrix is invertible. So for making this B matrix invertible, we require this constraint that the that the columns of the A matrix corresponding to the basic variables are linearly independent. Otherwise, the coordinates of the basic variables at x bar, this x bar will not be unique, and then that creates a problem. So hence this requirement is there. And then if this is invertible, xb bar becomes b inverse b, which is b bar, which has to be greater than or equal to 0, because x has to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, fine. Now the next question is how to check if a given BFS uh, basic feasible solution represents an optimal or not. So that is the next question that we need to tackle. So since b times of xb plus n times of xn is equal to b. Now here xb and xn are variables. Okay, we are they are the partition, we have partitioned the x vector into the set xp and xn. That's all I am meaning. When I have had put a bar here, xb bar and xn bar, then I was looking at some specific values like this. Okay, now here we are having this as a variables. The x vector or the n variables have been partitioned into basic variables and non-basic variables, and then I can express xb. So I take nxn on the right hand side, so this becomes b minus nxn. Then because as I said, for a basic feasible solution, the columns of the matrix A corresponding to xb are linearly independent, so therefore I get a m cross m matrix here, which is in which all the m columns are linearly independent. So therefore this m cross m matrix becomes non-singular, full rank non-singular. So therefore its B inverse exists, and because its B inverse exists, I can write XB as B inverse of B minus NXN. So this is, and what is B inverse B? This is a vector B bar which corresponds to the coordinates of X at that particular BFS, and those coordinates are strictly greater than 0. So this is a fixed vector. Like in our case, if this was the case 5 5 2, then this vector would be phi 2, and then this is going to be some matrix, and then this will be multiplied by this uh, partition vector xn. So therefore, now if I have partitioned my variables into xb and xn, then that will induce on the cost coefficients a partition cb and cn. So therefore, C transpose X, I am now writing it as CB transpose XB plus CN transpose XN. And next step, for XB, I will substitute B inverse of B minus NXN. So I substitute that here, and then plus Cnxn is the new representation of the objective function only in terms of xn. The only variables now there are xn. So what do you get here? First term cb transpose b bar, which is a scalar, a number, a fixed number which we know, because we know b bar, we know cb transpose, so we know this constant cb transpose b bar plus Cn transpose Xn minus Cb transpose B inverse N times Xn. So this is the way I have reorganized and written the equation. So this has xn is a n minus m column vector. So therefore clearly this is a n minus m row vector, and this is of course a scalar. At the end of it, this product is also a scalar, but this is a n minus m row vector. This is a n minus m column vector. So let's just take a random example. Okay, suppose that let f of n be equal to 3 plus 5 4 3 times x3 x7 x8. Okay, This is after the reduction I have done. So my non-basic variables are x3, x7, x8. I have done a reduction. I have done all this calculation. CB transpose B bar has come out to be 3. This vector has come out to be 5, 4 and 3. And my non-basic variables were at some stage of simplex x3, x7 and x8. So then this is what my fxn becomes 3 plus 5x3 plus 4x7 plus 3 times of x8. Now in this case, since increasing any non-basic variable above 0, because the non-basic variables are at what value? 0 value. So you are in, if you want to do anything with them, what you have to do? You have to increase them. So since in this case any non-basic variable, increasing any non-basic variable above 0 will increase the objective function value. Why? Because you increase x3 above 0, it multiplies by 5. So you make say 0.1, you add 0.5. If you make x7 1, you add plus 4. If you make x8 say 2, you would add 6. So whatever will increase objective function value, hence the existing BFS is optimal for a minimization problem, because I have eliminated basic feasible variables, expressed now my problem only in terms of non-basic variables, and the non-basic variables were at value 0, and now I check what happens, and I am only allowed to increase them, and I see that if I increase them, objective function value will increase. So what should I do? I should sit where I am, right, at this very basic feasible solution. Lucky fellow, I already have got my optimal solution, so just sit there and don't do anything. If you try to do anything now, the objective function value is increasing. This is for a minimization problem. Now let's say f of xn is 3 plus, let's say minus 5, minus 4, minus 3, x3, x7, x8. The above BFS is optimal for a maximization problem. So in the minimization problem, this reduced cost vector comes out to be positive. In the maximization problem, the reduced cost vector will come out to be all negative entries. Why? Because if I increase these non-basic variables, the term contribution from these non-basic variables will be to reduce the objective function, and reduction is not what I am looking for in a maximization problem. So I won't take that move. And if I am not going to take any move, then it means that I am at the optimal solution. So the above of BFS is optimal for a maximization problem. So you actually see that I have already given you the test for optimality as to when the linear programming or the simplex iteration will close. It will close if this reduced cost coefficients, they are greater than or equal to 0 for a minimization problem, and less than or equal to 0 for a maximization problem. So when you will proceed from one iteration to another, when neither of the above two conditions are happening. So let's say that you had a mixed coefficients, f of xn is equal to 3 plus minus 5, then 4 minus 3 times of x3, x7 and x8. Now in this case, if we are considering a minimization problem, then we have, if we increase x3 from 0 onwards, it will reduce the objective function. So will, if we increase x8 above 0, so will the objective function reduce due to contribution minus 3 times of x8 from the last term. However, if we increase x7, the objective function will increase, which we don't want to do in a minimization problem. So we should either increase for a minimization problem, we should either increase x3 or x8. Since the rate of reduction is highest when we choose x3, minus 5x3 means it objective function reduces faster in comparison with minus 3x8, we will opt to increase to the limit uh, x3 without violating either the requirement Ax is equal to b, or the the requirement that x is equal to 0. To that, we will try to push our frontiers. So until what is going to happen is some, as you increase this, the basic variables, some basic variables will start reducing. When the first variable reduces to 0, any one of them, when it first hits to 0, that's where you have to stop, because if you go any further, then that basic variable will become negative, which is not allowed. So if we are considering maximization problem, we should increase x7. Okay. Why? Because you want to maximize. This is the only positive term here. So we should increase x7 to the limit, that is until one of the BFS variables becomes 0. Now, when that BFS variable, the basic variable becomes 0, it has actually transitioned from basic variable into the partition of non-basic variable. And the non-basic variable which became positive, let's say for example x7 here, then now the x7 has become a, x7 has become now a basic variable. So let's say for example that the x1 variable was basic variable, and as we increased the x7, x1 went to 0. So then the x1 will move to the non-basic partition, and x7 which has become positive will move to the basic partition. So only one variable undergoes a change. One variable comes to 0 rather from the basic partition, and one non-basic partition becomes uh, positive. And so we move to the adjacent vertex or the adjacent feasible corner point in this particular, in this kind of a sequence. And hence we go from one sequence to the next sequence, which is a better one, and so on until we converge. The above steps are repeated until we reach an optimal, and this is the crux of the simplex algorithm phase 2. Once we decide to introduce xj, a non-basic variable, as basic, the next question is up to what limit can we increase it? This is very important question, and this is algebra of it, accounting of it. Look at it, it's more like an accounting problem. And if the answer is that xj can be taken to infinity, then cj xj will go to minus infinity in the case of minimization problem, because we have chosen xj to increase only because cj is less than 0, and so we get a problem of unbounded solution. So how we need to figure out when xj can be taken to plus infinity. We'll come to that. Now, otherwise, what will happen? Some basic variable will keep reducing, and when the first among them goes to 0, we stop. That say that variable is xr. So the xr is the variable in that which goes to 0 as we increase xj, the first variable which goes to 0 among the basic variables. In that case, xr becomes a non-basic variable and xj becomes the basic variable, and xj becomes the basic variable. Now we repeat the process all over. That is, again calculate the reduced cost with this new partition of b and n. Then check if this is greater than or equal to 0. If yes, we are at the optimal. If not, we choose the most negative among them in a minimization problem and bring that as xj into the basic variable, and proceed like this until we terminate at the optimal solution or get an unbounded solution, which means we hit at some place where we find that the xj can be taken to infinity. That I will give that test later on. But if that doesn't happen, then when finally the reduced cost vector, all of it becomes positive, then we stop in a minimization problem. If all of it becomes negative, then we stop in a maximization problem. Okay, now your question will be, of course, that will this process ever terminate? Is it possible that this will create an infinite iterative loop and I will, uh, so to say, never, this process will never terminate? Answer is no. Uh, I mean, rather, will the process terminate? The answer is yes. The number of extreme points or the corner points or the basic feasible corner points or the basic feasible solution have an upper limit. Why? Because they are, how many of them maximum can be there? NCM. See, the basic variables are only M, and those are M are coming from the set of N variables. So in how many ways can I find out this set of M variables? This is NCM. The order is not important. The only I need to group it into how many group of M variables can I create out of this N variables. So that is NCM, which is N factorial by M factorial N minus M, which is a finite number, maybe very large, but a finite number. Hence, this is the maximum number of possible basic feasible solutions, and after that the process has to terminate. So hence the process will terminate after finite number of steps. In each of these points, so the next question is, okay, fine, it will terminate, let's say, in a finite number of steps. Then the next question is each of uh, uh, is each of these points in a BFS, each of these possible combinations are BFS? Answer is not necessarily. Why? Because some particular point, it's just a partition, right? It's possible that that partition may not be feasible. That is, you will not get Ax is equal to B and x greater than or equal to 0. Ax is equal to B you will get, but provided the columns are linearly independent, but the x vectors may not be greater than 0. Or, as I said, if the partition that you have induced, if the corresponding columns in the A matrix are not linearly independent, then B inverse may not exist. Hence, it is not necessary that each of these combinations here, for example, like you had x1, x2, x3, m equal to 2 and n equal to 3. So then NCM would be 3C2, which is equal to 3. So your possible partitions are x1, x2 for basic variables, x2, x3 for basic variables, and x3, x1 for basic variables. It doesn't matter if I write this as x2, x1 or x3, x2 or x1, x2. Now maybe it is possible that these two are BFS, basic feasible solutions. They meet all the requirements that the coordinate vectors here are greater than 0, and the corresponding columns of the B matrix are linearly independent. But this may not necessarily meet either the requirement of they being greater than 0 or possibly linearly possible independent. So this kind of thing can happen. Okay. So 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 is simplex method? The last question is, okay, since it has so many point basic feasible vertices to look into, in my algorithm, of course, chooses the next better point at every iteration. That's what it is trying to do. But it is possible that there is a huge number of basic feasible solutions and I may have to enumerate all of them, in which case the method will look computationally inefficient. So is simplex method efficient? Answer is yes and no. Worst case complexity, as I told you, you can create actually pathological party problems in which from the starting BFS to the optimal BFS, you have to trace all the vertices. It is possible. So worst case, the algorithm may become so slow that it is of no use to you. But on an average, that is, means the practical experience is that you rather get very quick convergence, and hence simplex method is quite popular. Okay. Now we come to the question of what is the step size that we have to take in the basic with the simplex method. I think we'll take a small break and then we'll take this.